Welcome everyone to episode 140 of the Send Nutrition Podcast. You're with your hosts Bryan and Peter today. And on today's episode, we are going over the topic of FABA beans, a superfood for horses, and why they are better than lupins. Hey, Pete?
Bryan, I tell you what, people's heads are going to be spinning after this one. It's very controversial.
They'll be like, hey, hold on, didn't you guys have a lupin product? But what we do in this industry and what we do in life is we never stop learning, we never stop developing. And this was actually a good key question that was asked by a lot of clients. Why was the change? Why are they better? And what results are you getting from them? So we thought we'd go over this topic to really address this and give everyone the confidence of this new base change that was last year and the results that have really followed and the fantastic results we're getting and seeing in all horse industries.
Yeah, Bryan, so maybe let's take a snapshot back in time. Obviously, the original product was the grain-free. And look, when we first kicked off at the very beginning, almost 11 years this year, a lot of people wouldn't know, but we were actually using soybean hulls at the very begining.
Yeah, 100%. That's a legume. So when you look at legumes in horse feeds, you have soybeans, lupin beans, and FABA beans. And also lucin is a legume as well. And you'll see other grain-free products that have lucin in them as a base.
Yeah, so we started with the soybean hulls, and then obviously we progressed onto the lupin bean hulls, and now we're onto the FABA bean hulls. So it's not like, there's some dramatic change. And there's reasons why we started with the soy, we went on to the lupins, and now we've come onto the FABA beans. So just to let our listeners know is we have gone through all three, and we do feel that this FABA bean hull, obviously, and the kernel, because we use both, we use the hull and we use the kernel, is a much better product than what we had previously. So going back in time, we had the grain-free, obviously, and then there was a request to have a good product that's got good protein, good amino acids, with marine calcium, marine magnesium, some basic minerals through it. So then obviously we had the ultimate. We had the grain-free, we had the lupin pellet, and that worked well. But there was I wouldn't say it was a common problem, but a lot of feedback that we were getting was, hey, love the two products, don't mind feeding the two products. It's a little bit of an inconvenience to feed the two products. The horses, bomb-proof, they're calm, but they're still lacking that extra energy that I'm looking for.
Yeah, it was definitely a common comment when you looked at the performance horses in particular. When they require that extra sugar and starch in their diet, we're kind of going back on what we're trying to preach and adding those oats or giving that extra calorie source. And what the lupins did help was, obviously, it was a very, very low starch level at 1%, but we always questioned, was it too low? And then that made us wonder, even developing it through the last few years, what other beans or anything in that legume family would be suitable? We even looked back at soy in that process just to see what was lacking or what we could do. And we knew soy, we had issues in the past with palatability. The lupins, is there something better out there? But then also one of the other kickers was the FABA bean was really abundant on the east coast of Australia. And when you put two and two together, we were sort of strapped to the west coast with the logistics to bring it across. But then deep diving the FABA bean, which is what we'll do in this podcast, so you can really see where we're coming from, it actually had a really interesting profile that is still low sugar, low starch, but supported the body of the horse better. And we'll outline this shortly.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we sort of went away from our mantra where we try to, our goal was to have one feed, to have a complete feed that had everything in it. And then obviously, with the performance guys, they were on the original grain-free, and then they had to add the lupin pellet, for the extra energy, for the extra calories. But then even, the performance guys say with endurance, when Ashley Cole won, obviously the 2023 Tom Quilty, she was still adding oats, and we're going, well, how are we different to every other feed company that's got 34 different feeds? Well, we're asking this person to feed three different things. It might be the grain-free, the lupin pellet, plus the oats. Well, that tells me that there's not enough digestible energy in our two products, that we have to ask them to feed oats. And look, that was happening a little bit even through the winter time with some horses that struggled to keep weight on. And that's where I think the lupin, in general, it's a great legume, but with that 1% starch, I think the sugar's around about 5%. it's just not enough for the performance guys. It's not enough for the winter time to help keep weight on. And as soon as you start exercising a horse and it's cold, a lot of those horses were dropping off. So that's why we racked our brains and said, all right, Bryan, there's got to be something else out there. And that's where we bumped into the FABA bean.
Yeah, 100%, Peter. And we use the two parts of the FABA bean. So the FABA hulls, which is the high fiber part, and the FABA kernels for the high protein. And along comes with that is a really good level of sugar and starch. But the key thing with this is some of the starch is resistant starch, which is actually fermented in the hindgut of the horse. So it's not that full, say, imitation of grain starch. It's actually a very healthy one. And when we looked at the whole profile of the protein quality for a performance horse, it's similar, if not superior, to other close legume counterparts like the lupins. So the lysine, methionine, leucine amino acid levels are very similar. And when you look forward with the digestible energy that comes from the FABA bean, we think it's a definite improvement because the horses are holding their condition better and not dropping off.
Absolutely, Bryan. And as I said, just to confirm, we do use the hull, but we also do use the kernel. There's a couple of fiber products that are lupin-based that have sort of popped up out of nowhere, and they're saying, well, it's the same as the old Sen product and everything. Have a look at the ingredients. These guys are only using the hull itself. So in terms of the hull, there's very little digestible energy in the hull. There's a lot of fiber, which is fantastic, but with little digestible energy, with not much starch and just very high fiber, this is where the horses are dropping off. And these guys are not adding any kernel into it. It's purely just a 100% lupin hull product.
Yeah, 100%, Pete. When we looked at the FABA bean, it really has a competitive advantage over soy and lupins. And what we found is, obviously, it's a non-GMO product. It's not considered a regulated allergen, but the FABA bean has bioactive peptides that also have other benefit or health benefits, including phenolic compounds, that resistant starches we talked about before, the dietary fiber, and also non-protein amino acids like the L-DOPA and the GABA, which all really help that gut health and digestive support.
For our listeners that might not know what resistant starch is, you can obviously put it into Google and see what comes out. But what it is, it's basically the human equivalent of low GI. So it doesn't create those insulin spikes where your horse is sort of bouncing off the fence and trying to do backflips. It's almost like a slow release starch. That's why it's called resistant starch, and that's actually a safe starch. So the beautiful thing with the FABA bean is you do get the highest starch. And look, our ultimate grain free obviously is about 12.8 starch. But we've seen numbers up to 50% being resistant starch. So it could really be 6 or 7% proper starch, which is still very, very, very little, but it's enough to replenish those glycogen stores for those competition horses and for that horse to have the calmness, still be quiet, bomb-proof in a way, but still have that digestible energy to go to that next level and not lose energy pretty much when it needs to have that energy.
Yeah, that's well said, Pete. And with the resistant starch, it does act like that prebiotic, as Pete said. So it feeds those trillions of good microbes in the hindgut of the horse. That's your powerhouse. That's what is required for a horse to really thrive, because you've got everything from the gut-brain axis that influences behavior. 70% of the immune system is in the horse's hindgut as well. And to keep that environment in its best condition, that really helps alongside that high fiber roughage source of their foundations in either in that hay and pasture. But when you look at that whole fermentation process, it really helps the absorption of nutrients as well. So when this is all combined in a balanced diet for your horse, it has our vitamin mineral profile, which has been known for all these years to be very effective for all the body systems, including the hoof health, skin and coat color, skin and coat condition, but then the immune system and then their bone health. Their muscle health is really one of the other key attributes of this profile as well, because you have that good amino acid profile going in and the protein quality and that protein percentage is not overdone as opposed to, say, that lucerne legume.
Yeah, absolutely. And just sort of for the record as well, the FABA beans, which is a tick bean. So to some of our sort of older listeners that don't know what a FABA bean is, it's a tick bean or a broad bean. So it's all the same thing. And just to clarify, the amino acid profile between obviously the FABA bean and the lupin bean, is very similar, if not almost identical, with the lysine, methionine, and leucine. Also to remember, because we use a substantial part of the kernel, a lot of the amino acids are in the kernel. They're not in the shell. So there is amino acids in the shell, but it's not as high of a quantity as what it is in a kernel itself. So, our levels, we think, of especially the essential amino acids are going to be quite high compared to another product which is just using the hulls on their own.
Yeah, and as Pete said, that macronutrient profile of both parts of the fava beans really well supports that performance horse. And we get a very common question asked is, now, what about the metabolic horse? And when you look at a low sugar, low starch feed by definition, if you look into America, they term this definition at under 20% sugar and starch. And then when you look at the full metabolic horse, they want this under 10%. But percentages are only a guide, and really it's the feed rate that is the key thing. So for the Sen Grain-Free Ultimate, at a 1 kg feed rate, we have many metabolic horses absolutely thriving without any laminitic episodes or metabolic issues, but also it's totally ulcer safe as well. So we feel we have the right balance for every horse with this formula. But then moving forward, the condition that they've held with the positive effects on their behavior really makes this one of the best feeds for a performance horse.
Just come back to the laminitic horses, Brian. As you were saying, look, for them, it's a bit of a walk in a tightrope thing, because obviously they're worried with the sugar and the starch, as you mentioned. The thing is, if you go too far to the right, you don't have any starch, let alone resistant starch. Middle of winter, that horse starts losing weight. Your choices to put weight back on are very limited because everything is low sugar, low starch. So if the horse is tipping backwards, well, it's not like you can give it oats or you can give it, a rice bran feed, which is 20% starch. So those people's hands are very tied. We think we've got the solution with the Grain-Free Ultimate, obviously at 12.8% starch. We think half of that is resistant starch. So that might be enough of a safe level of starch to maintain the weight of that laminitic horse, possibly put a little bit of weight on in a safe way without aggravating the laminitis. Because as I said, if you get something that's 1% starch, well, that horse might just keep dropping off, and then it's very hard to bring it back in the middle of winter.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of examples down that way in previous years, and when we have moved forward with the fava beans, we've just noticed that particularly through that last winter, the horses, we've been getting reports, even the brood mares, they really hold their condition without that addition of a full-blown grain. But what fava beans, or the fava hulls in particular, really encourage is those short-chain fatty acid production in the hindgut of the horse. So they play a role in energy production, the gut health. They even help with inflammation reduction and that immune system support. So when we look at our mantra of having your foundation of fiber as your roughage going in, this feed, which is really suited to that performance horse or that hard keeper, really helps maintain their condition while helping balance that full vitamin profile on a daily basis.
Yeah, and if you're a performance horse owner, and it might be dressage or it might be show jumping, it might be endurance, and you may be feeding a fiber feed for the fiber and then you're adding oats as the grain portion, we've got the solution for you. This is your 2-in-1. So the beautiful thing with the Ultimate, obviously, faba bean as the main ingredients, is that you're getting that steady release of energy, unlike the grains like corn and barley, which create that insulin spike. So in the end, I think the digestible energy of our product is around about 12 megajoules. If you're looking at grains, they're between 12 and 13. But you get that really, really big high, but then you get that really, really big low where the horse hits that flat spot. So this is pretty much the all-in-one solution that those performance guys were asking us sort of to create inadvertently without telling to our face that, I need to keep adding this, I need to keep adding that. There's not enough energy. So with the resistant starch, that's where those insulin spikes aren't really going to be evident or showing their heads. There is very low sugar as well. So once again, very, very limited insulin.
It's actually got less sugar than the lupins.
We believe, from memory, Brian, lupins is about 5-6%.
Yeah, it's like 1-2%
maximum.
There, yeah. And I think even talking to other trainers around Australia, even the older ones, I think they used to feed FABA beans
Correct.
straight.
Correct, straight.
Way back in the day.
Yeah, and I mean, going on to the sugar part, we know the beet pulp is 5-6% sugar. We know the lupins are 5-6%. You know, we're at 1 to 2. So sugar's the enemy. It's not the starch. Obviously, starch at 30% will be the enemy. But if you're looking at, you know, sort of 10-12%, it's irrelevant.
Yeah, that overall NSC or that non-structural carbohydrate is still low. And when you compare it to a straight grain at over 50-60%, yeah, it's actually a way better sustained energy or steady energy release compared to those grains like corn, barley.
So, Bryan, another question we get is the anti-nutritional factors in faba beans. Are there any?
So all legumes contain some. Soybeans probably cop it the highest with what they have, but when you look at faba beans compared to this, they have a lower amount. When you look at their protease inhibitors and the other inhibitors, it's very minimal and definitely no effect with the horses, the way that pellet is formed. There's low tannin varieties, which is what Sen uses, and they're there for optimal digestion and palatability.
Bryan, let's go into the sustainability and impact on the environment with the faba beans.
So for the Australian farmers is what we like to support. So we've been doing this for over 11 years now. And when we look at it, the landscape of farms on the East Coast, faba beans are really good to fix the nitrogen in the soil. So they use it as a rotational crop, which actually reduces their synthetic fertilizer use for these farms. So we are really happy to hear that this is a more sustainable feed choice compared to soy and other legumes.
Yeah, absolutely, Bryan. How about the results and sort of testimonials that we've got with the grain-free ultimate, just so people can sort of, you know, because they'll be asking, oh, it's great you're telling us all this information, but, you know, where's the proof on the pudding?
Well, I think one of the key performances of last year was the Tom Quilty 2024 winner, Razorback Kelly's Fire. So if anyone doesn't know, this is the national endurance race or the Gold Cup over 160 kilometres. So these horses, there's nowhere to hide over that 160 kilometres, and the winner is fully powered by Sen. So it was fully powered by that FABA bean-based product, the Sen Grain-Free Ultimate, with fantastic vet checks during the race with the gut sounds and also the heart rates. And from all reports, the horse could have gone round again. It was just an amazing recovery, and Jolene, the trainer, just puts it down to that whole balanced diet. But one of the key factors was the Sen Grain-Free Ultimate with that FABA bean base.
Yeah, and that's just sort of, I think, the proof in the pudding in terms of us putting our heads together sort of 12 months back and go, well, all right, can we try to create one product that's going to tick 3 or 4 different boxes without the need to supplement further grain? And I think at that 160 kilometre event, it was going to be sink or swim for the grain-free ultimate. If there wasn't enough calories, if there wasn't enough starch, or if there was too much sugar, or if there wasn't enough fiber, that's where you would get exposed if the product, wasn't really up to the scratch. But, thanks to Jolene and Emma for putting faith in us, myself and Bryan and the team, but also having faith in a product that, knowing that, we spent a lot of time developing it and we were very confident it would work out the way that it did.
Yeah, that's top tier proof of that industry. And we're getting a lot of reports in the Western, even the dressage, but also studs around Australia using it to help support their broodmares in their last trimester, particularly for those calories, but also that intenseness of the vitamin minerals required for that third trimester of their pregnancy.
A very difficult aspect for us was to try to get the palatability right. When you dabble in the high fiber feeds, low sugar, low starch, it's the reason why it's low sugar, low starch, because, it doesn't taste very good. So we had to get the palatability right. When you've got horses that are in work 5-6 days a week, sometimes, the last thing they want to do is eat a healthy meal, just like us humans when we're sick. So we worked on it tirelessly. I think we've got the balance absolutely right now. The feedback coming from a lot of disciplines is that, it's ticking the energy box. Horse is still bomb-proof, very calm. There's no need to dip in for those oats or the corns or the barley to get that energy hit. And to get that in one product. All the work that we've done, I think it's come to fruition.
Oh, yeah, definitely, Peter. And it's music to my ears when we get reports even from dressage stables that say all they want to do is eat the Sen Grain-Free Ultimate. They don't want to eat other grain-based products on the road because obviously there's a lot of stress. But what they're seeing is it's nourishing the horse's hindgut, which can be affected through stress, but then in a really healthy profile with that FABA bean base. And that really preserves their condition on the road, but also keeps their behavior really level-headed.
Yeah, and I think, Bryan, when you try to innovate a new legume like we did, with the lupins, before we sort of started promoting obviously lupin, the benefits of it, no one was really using it. I think obviously there's a few companies now that have sort of jumped on a bandwagon, which is great because it is a great legume. But we want to go to the next level. We want to be that that company that's out in front of the pack, innovating the industry. And look, if other guys want to jump on the FABA bean bandwagon, absolutely great for the horse because we know that it's very healthy. It's taking some nutritional benefits. It's saving owners feeding 2 or 3 different feeds or adding additional supplements to their feed, like a fiber feed, which is lacking vitamins and minerals and pro and prebiotic. So I think if you're looking for a feed that's basically an all-in-one complete feed, whether it's for performance, whether it's for breeding stock, whether it's for your dressage horse or your show jumping or even the 160 kilometre, Tom Quilty endurance event, feel free to contact us. You may look at getting a free diet consult with myself and Bryan, see how we could possibly integrate the grain-free ultimate, which is the FABA bean-based product, how it might benefit your horse and your stable.
Yeah, they're very valuable, and we do keep it confidential because I've got a few Tom Quilty competitors that were on it and that were having issues tying up in the past, which really corrected it. So it's a real testament to this product and the proof in the pudding with the new FABA bean base, which is not new anymore because it's been out for over 8 months now. And when we look at how performance stables balance it to their workload, their environment, even other factors, that free diet consult is really invaluable, and we give you ongoing support throughout this because there's not one size fits all. But when you integrate the Sen feed program, which has the grain-free ultimate in it, you will see an improvement to their overall health.
So for our listeners out there, Bryan and I have actually done the legwork with the formulation to formulate it for Australian conditions. Make sure that the zinc, copper, manganese, magnesium, marine calcium, phosphorus, everything is in balance for Australian conditions. You have got the option to get a fiber-based feed without anything into it, and you can start adding your supplements, your powdered supplements into your own, fiber-based feeds, and then you can add some cracked lupins or soaked lupins and try to do it that way. But before anything, you're going to be sort of 10 deep. You're looking at, $10, $12, $15 per feed per day. You're trying to run on an online platform that, that's giving you all the green ticks, but yet your horse isn't looking, all green. So sometimes it's good to get a second opinion. It's an obligation free. We don't try to jam products down your throat. We're here to give information. We're here to give free information, and people can take this information that we give and go and formulate their own diets. At least that's a good thing because you're going to be doing it on a healthy mindset. We're trying to do the best for your horse. Obviously, they need the fiber. They need some starch. They can have a little bit of sugar. What it is, it's all about balance. When we do the consults, we're finding a lot of people, their friend tells them to add this, their neighbor tells them to add that, their daughter or their granddad tells them to add that. And as I said, before anything, they're 10 deep and it's like, geez, I'm spending $20 a day. Like, where's it going to stop? And I'm feeding 8 times a day.
You can feel the frustration in their voice on the phone. They're just pulling their hair out. And when we strip it back to basics, that 1.5% of roughage, I'm like a broken record, but you need that roughage source as a foundation. So either grassy hay or pasture. You use a very healthy balancer pellet like the Sen Grain-Free Ultimate, which has our FABA bean base, and it has no oils, no fillers, low iron, and the vitamin mineral profile to suit the Australian conditions to balance that roughage source. Then we go from there and you add your salt and your plant-based omega-3, and that's basically our full mantra without the subs, because with all the over supplementation, you may not need to supplement because you've corrected any deficiencies in the foundation.
Bryan, something I'm really proud of with yourself is that we've managed to have one hard feed in our company. There's not many companies in Australia, if around the world, and this isn't to beat our chests and say how great we are, but it's something that we're proud of, that the consumer can actually look at and go, all right, well, these guys have done the legwork to pretty much put everything in one bag. Obviously, I've got to look at my roughage, whether I'm on grass, whether I'm on pasture. If it's complicated, grass or hay, we might need to do a lab analysis to see what amount you may need. You may need more, you may need less, depending on what the analysis comes back to. But one aspect is that horses evolved on grass. They didn't evolve on 80 different grasses. I know there's different varieties of grasses out there, But, some businesses, some companies have got 34 different feeds. Well, is there a need for 34 different feeds or can we get away with one feed that's fully balanced and complete with the right nutrients?
Or are we trying to confuse the market? Like a lot of clients are calling up confused, saying which one should I be feeding? And when we get the result of our feeding foundations and mantra, you can see that we want to make your life more simple, but also save money in the long run as well.
Look, a common occurrence, Brian, when we did the diets is a lot of people, have tried to do the DIY, like do it yourself diet. So they'll start with a bee pulp as their base, and then they'll start adding powders into it. Then they'll work out that there's not enough energy, so they're gonna add a legume like a soaked lupin, and then I find out that they need a toxin binder. Then then there might be something else, and then a friend tells them this, and it's frustrating for them when we feel their pain. And sometimes Brian and I have to repeat ourselves sort of 10 times in a week because we see a common occurrence. We've done the DIY for you basically. We've used the high fiber base. There's enough starch and sugar there to power those performance horses. We've got the vitamins and minerals. We've done the pro and prebiotics. It is palatable. It is in a pelleted form. It's not dusty. It looks very clean. We've done the legwork. We've got 11 years in, obviously this year. So we breathe this, we live this, we make it a passion, and we're always trying to improve.
Yeah, I 100% echo those thoughts, Pete. And what we can do now is we can recap those key benefits and why the FABA bean is better than the lupin bean, or what we could say is it's a new frontier because what we've developed, we've seen the results firsthand, and it's just another evolvement to horse health and a more sustainable way. So what we have is the high quality protein in the FABA bean is preserved and then also gives that additional gut health support to your horse. It's a sustainable choice. So on the East Coast, really good for crop rotation. We're supporting the Australian farmers in that sense. The way the FABA bean base really holds the condition for the horse, and then you see that non-effect with behavior or that metabolic side. The palatability is maintained with a profile that's still high fiber. It's got a really good level of the sugar and starch in it that helps the horse. But the key thing with that is there is some resistant starch there that helps the hindgut, as we said, with the gut health support. But overall, this product is getting the results in all horse industries in Australia, and with noticeable feedback in the condition and behavior of these horses. Any final thoughts, Pete?
Yeah, Brian, some final thoughts from me was that if our listeners might be thinking, oh, well, like these guys are hypocrites, they were promoting the lupin pellet and everything like that. Well, if you guys knew us, year one, we were promoting the soybean hull as well. And as our knowledge grows, we adapt, we innovate, we change, we let you guys know, when we stumble upon something. So we're not hypocrites. We've used soy hulls, we've used lupin hulls, we're using FABA bean hulls and kernels. So as we see something that's better, as we see a problem arising or some feedback from our customers saying, hey, look, I don't like this, we try to fix it. So we're at the journey for the FABA bean. We think it's the best legume that we've come across. There might be something different in 5 years' time that we stumble upon, and we're going to do our research like we did with the FABA bean. So just rest assured that we have done our research onto the FABA bean. With the resistant starch, for me, it's the kicker. Basically, you don't need to feed that grain on top of your high fiber feed because there's enough energy in the ultimate. And this is why we've called it the grain-free ultimate. The original one was just the grain-free. It's the ultimate because now it has got that additional, it's got the additional digestible energy. Doesn't create the insulin spikes. You've still got the high fiber. You've got the amino acids, essential amino acids, as good as what they are in a lupin bean. And FABA bean, lupin bean, it's the same brother from the same mother. Basically, it's. You like that one, Bryan?
Yeah.
So we're passionate about it. We're trying to create products, obviously, that solve solutions and obviously give the horse owners their life back. A lot of people are feeding 3 times a day, 4 times a day. When they go away, their husband looks at the feed board and gets a headache and sort of gets a bit cross-eyed looking at all the things that they've got to add into it. So the husbands out there love us when their wives jump onto the Sen feed program. As a business, Bryan and I would never take a step back in terms of innovating a product that's going to be worse. We only look forward. We've got our hands on the steering wheel going forward, trying to innovate and actually create better products. And as I said, this product with the amino acids is as good as the lupin, if not better. the advantage for the, for the performance horses that now you've got that resistant starch. There's enough there with the glycogen stores to keep weight on a horse. There's plenty there to build top line on a horse. But best of all, you're going to get that cool, calm temperament that you're looking for.
Yeah, 100% echo those thoughts, Pete. We never stopped learning. Coming from a blood scientist background, we always kept up to date with the latest research, latest journals. We really keep on top of it here. We want what's best for the horse at the end of the day, and that's where our passion lies. We don't want to confuse our horse owners. We want to keep it simple. And as Pete said, the more simple we can make it, the more time you can just spend training and getting to know your horse better and not worrying about the nutrition. And that's one of the common things with all our Sen clients. They get their life back. So I think that about wraps that up on the FABA bean and why it is the better choice over lupins. If you guys did really like this podcast, please leave a 5-star review on it. We also have our Sen users group. If you would really like your diet to be analyzed to see any shortfalls, we do offer the free diet consults at our website. Very, very popular. We do over 100 a month, which is really stripping back and helping horse owners be less confused and save money with their diets.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Cheers.